We have been misunderstanding Rancors all along. Greetings, students of the Force, and welcome back to the archives. The Rancor has been known since its first appearance as a giant savage monster which will devour anything and everyone put in its path. The vicious beast beneath Jabba's palace once threatened the life of Luke Skywalker, and was also responsible for the death of dozens of Jabba's enemies. Throughout the galaxy, these giant beasts have been feared due to their intimidating stature and their deadly reputation. But what if we told you that this was all a fabricated lie? What if we told you that the wild, untrained Rancors are actually gentle giants with soft hearts and protective natures? What if we told you that they inspired the most gentle form of lightsaber combat? Well, join us today as we open another holocron and discuss why the Rancors may just be the most misunderstood species in the entire Star Wars galaxy. Rancors were a sight to behold, as they typically stood at a massive height with large bone-crushing maws, long taloned fingers, and a thick armored hide that could resist even blaster fire. While they were naturally powerful and carnivorous predators, they weren't inherently vicious to any sentient life. These were behaviors that had to be specifically bred within Rancors and trained. The only exception to this was the Rage Rancors and the Shadow Rancors. The Rage subspecies were much smaller than their standard cousins and boasted more spikes all across their body. They lived in jungles and had a particularly nasty temperament. Shadow Rancors, named after the dark colors of their hide, would attack literally anything within arm's reach. But again, these were exceptions, not the rule. Wild Rancors usually only attacked sentient life when they were provoked or threatened, as they did have a notorious short fuse. In some cases, Rancors that lived on worlds rich with the dark side would be more prone to attacking sentient targets that they found in the wild. This was the case when Darth Bane encountered a raging wild Rancor on the moon of Duxun, a beast whose existence had been influenced by the dark energies coming from the tomb of Freed and Nad. But by and large, wild Rancors were actually benign creatures. In the wild, they often formed symbiotic relationships to help them through their daily life. In one such case, they worked together with the gibbet birds in order to clean their teeth. Rancors often lie down with their mouths open, and the avians would fly down and pick out the debris in their teeth. The birds would get a meal, and the Rancors got a form of dental hygiene. Young hatchling pups were often friendly and playful, blissfully unaware of the nature of their true strength. If they ever got rowdy, they could be easily pacified with a bone or a toy to chew on. Once they were taught basic obedience, young Rancors could calm easily and grow to be very gentle and protective companions. Most of the time, Rancors bonded with their trainers and were very loving towards them. This is why we saw the handler in Jabba's palace become so upset at his pet when he was killed by Luke. Many years later, Luke would speak to one of his students who was a Night Sister of Dathomir and express that he regretted having to kill the beast within Jabba's palace, remarking that it was a shame because they were such fine and good creatures. His student Tanel had come from the Singing Mountain clan of Dathomir, a coven of witches that specialized in taming and riding Rancors. They were one of the only people in the galaxy to make a generational practice of domesticating them and organizing them into herds. The Dathomirian subspecies were apparently semi-sentient, likely having been influenced by Night Sister magic over centuries, and they could share a telepathic link with their riders, connecting with them through the Force. These creatures were so intelligent that they could also share oral histories with members of their herds and have them passed down through generations. There was even one Rancor by the name of Tosh. She was the oldest living Rancor specimen in the galaxy, and she developed the ability to read and write after being taught over a long period of time. According to the Rancor's own traditions, the symbiosis between their species and the witches began when a warrior woman met and healed an injured Rancor female. By mounting the Rancor's back, the witches sharpened her eyesight, and the witch used the Rancor to hunt prey at night, as Rancors typically had a difficult time seeing in the stark daylight when compared to human vision. The female Rancor grew in size and status to become a mighty herd mother, and from that point forward, the Night Sisters of Dathomir and the Rancors formed a bond that would last for hundreds of years. But what is most fascinating is how the Jedi actually seemed to understand these aspects before anyone else did. Form 6 Niman is also called the Way of the Rancor. The Jedi often give their lightsaber forms pseudonyms based off of creatures in the galaxy that best align with the philosophy of the form. Form 6 is all about moderation over aggression. It strikes a perfect balance between offense and defense, never wholly giving into one or the other. Niman is simplistic, but incredibly versatile, giving Jedi a good all-around option for any situation. It seems very odd that they would decide to name this form after what many consider to be a lumbering, mindless killer. But it appears that the Jedi know much more about the Rancors than nearly anyone else, and the moderation of Niman would speak to the hunting practices of the Rancors that we don't often get to see, since it emphasizes control over aggression. Wild Rancors must be far more practical in how they approach their prey, rather than just chasing them down and ripping them to pieces. But this understanding makes a great deal of sense, as the Rancor-riding Night Sisters were some of the founding members of the Jedi Order, when the Thoyor made the Great Migration to Tython back in the ancient days of the galaxy, 36,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Rancors are awe-inspiring, fascinating, beautiful creatures, and it's a shame that they've been taken advantage of because of their size and strength. Dangerous crime lords like Jabba the Hutt and Sith of old trained Rancors for battle and used them in armies. That aggression was carefully cultivated to make them fearsome creatures. Sith in particular used darkside alchemy to mutate, to transform, to change these beings into something far worse than what they were originally meant to be, poisoning them. We need to reiterate that the horrifying Terminus are not Rancors, but they once were. These power-hungry people see a large monster with great strength and ignore all of its other attributes, ignore all other lessons that the creature can offer. There is a noble gentility to these creatures, which is sadly overlooked because of their intimidating appearance, and frankly, their usefulness for war. But luckily, men such as Boba Fett have reclaimed the status of the Rancor as just creatures, and while still utilized for battle, Boba exemplifies what a true rider is meant to be. But in their pure form, Rancors are gentle, kind creatures. They do not wish to kill. They have no leaning towards the dark side, even those that reside on the world of Dathomir, a planet rich in the dark side of the Force. These creatures form some of the strongest bonds with the Night Sisters there, one that lasted for centuries on end. The creatures are only truly deadly and lost when it has been specifically bred into them, or when the dark side of the Force has been used to mutate and alter them permanently. Terminus are one of the most dangerous species in the entire galaxy, but where they stem, the Rancors are far from that. But are you pleased to hear about the true nature of these Rancors? Would you like to see a side of them shown more often in the lore? And what are your thoughts on the Jedi Order naming it after Form 6 Niman, as a way to exemplify how truthfully versatile the species of the Rancor is, how they are beautiful and misunderstood creatures? Let us know your thoughts down below. We have also contemplated breaking down the namesake of all of the 7 forms of lightsaber combat and the creatures that the forms are named after. So if you guys would like to see that video, be sure to like this one and request it down below. But as always, my friends, thank you so much for watching the archives. May the Force be with you, and I hope that you're having an absolutely phenomenal day. I'll catch you in the next one.